sort of seems to have led to the waterfront, and I guess the rest of the country looks to Wellington waterfront as a success, I guess, particularly within wishes we have something as the Wellington waterfront. I'm really interested in the multidisciplinary nature of the team that was put together to do that conceptual design that you mentioned, Graeme, in 1997. So Ath and Graeme were both part of the team. Stuart Niven and Chris McDonald, also urban designers, along with Megan Wright and Penny Allen, landscape architects. I'm interested in how that team was put together and how it worked. It was a big design team, but I guess also the sort of the claims that these different disciplines have to urban design, architects, planners, landscape architects, all having claims on the urban design realm.
If you put black and white people into a room for a certain length of time, they become grey. So that was probably helpful. A few drives and things like that, so they aided to it. And we had really good support people. We had economists, we had Ian Stanchel, who drew all the time, little thoughts. We were working on a very negative start, which was great. Everyone hated the sort of sheds which involved the event centre and the retail centre down on the wharves. So we were working on off the negative, which was great. And we produced something which was some really interesting thinking, and it was about how it felt rather than what we were really building. It was about the feeling of the place. And so there are a lot of sketches about people and grass and flowers and other little things. So they're little vignettes of what actually happened. We presented it to the public, and they were so enthusiastic. And then the CEO of Wellington Waterfront decided that after we presented, we just disappeared. And that was the big problem. And the process after that just didn't work at all. So the Waterfront Watch developed, and they saw buildings as the pills and landscape as the sweets. And so landscape was delivered before the buildings, so they weren't delivered together. It was much more exciting than it was here. It talked about the tributaries down the street from Lambton Quay to the waterfront. It talked about calm Jervis Quay. It talked about people coming from the water to the land, which is really important because we got used to actually moving from the land or looking at the water. But coming from the water to the land was an essential part of the experience. But I'm afraid just straight after that, that man who became the purchaser for the army after he lost his job here, made a complete cop-out of how it was presented. And he got a model made, and we said, you can't build an architecture model because it's not about architecture, it's about conditions, which means buildings can survive amongst landscape. And he built a model, but he got the model makers to build it all to 1 to 200, and the base model was 1 to 250. So these giant buildings came onto the site, and there was no space in between, which, it was just such a disappointing exercise after that. And so you run around picking a few crumbs off that table, if you're lucky. And we were quite lucky there.
I think one of the aspects of that project was everything had been so negative back in 1996. The mayor stopped the process for a cup of tea. Well, the cup of tea lasted for a good year. And then there was this design work which was tested with the public once in a big meeting before it was finally presented, and there were reference groups and all sorts of people coming all the time. And it was a real blast. But people really liked it. It was displayed in the library and so on. And I think people got a false sense of security because there were lobby groups that had been set up in opposition to the waterfront, 1996 and so on. And so nothing much happened. There was no communication after that, and these groups kept going. So there wasn't a nurturing of the process following. But I think just one thing that was interesting, you've asked about how the design team worked together. I found it really fascinating because we all sat down around a table about the size and the Wellington waterfront, what was named part management offices that over down here. We had an aerial photograph or a plan of the waterfront, and we talked non-stop for about a week, literally a week. There was not a single line drawn for at least a week But meanwhile, there are forays out onto the waterfront, taking photographs and doing all sorts of stuff. And then suddenly it all started. And it's fair enough to say it's very hard, if you go back to that time, to you can find some immense beautiful drawings of investigations for buildings and standards and wonderful stuff, but we had a whole lot of people drawing on the same drawing at the same time, discussing it. So it was a really very, very interesting way of designing, with a whole lot of kids looking at it at the same time, not people going away and doing things separately and putting it on the table, everybody working on it at the same time. And of course, people didn't get to go away to refine a few things and bring more information, but it was very much a collective design, which I think is what these sorts of projects are typically about. And subsequently I've worked with John and Athfield on things in the same sort of model as work.
And John, your work on the waterfront has also been collaborative, a lot of collaborative practice with the...
Yeah, it has. I guess, in the wake of this work, probably 2 or 3 years later, I've been involved. A lot of that with Megan Rake and Lake Associates on Tattling Wharf and then on Tattling Park. I was just thinking about the issue about communication. It seems to me that that's a huge part of the process. It's actually sort of, I guess, continuing a communication and dialogue with various groups as they go through. There's a sort of momentum, I guess, that builds up. And I remember opposition to Waterfront Watch, for example, where we're saying that the City Waterfront Lovers, I think Sam was part of that, and there was John Meany. It was just amazing how there's a sort of a kind of an organic process that happens where how long goes it. And in some ways, it's that conversation that happens all the way through. So when Waitami Park happened, which rates us won the competition, it was largely based on the work that you guys have done previously. And it was contentious at the time that it won. But and then I think that at that time, the people who were supporting it, there were a number of people from the Architecture Centre and various groups from all around, not just architecture, but from various realms that were supporting it, and there was a very strong position. And there was a huge kind of debate. And I suppose to me it was interesting that there was certainly collaboration in the design, and we were probably producing the landscape in architecture, so we were sort of swapping in that role quite a lot. And in the team there were probably about 15 or so different specialists working on that. And the stakeholders, there were about something like 20 or so different user groups that had a voice, and they had quite an organised voice regularly, particularly along the activity zone on the edge. But I think most importantly, all the way through was that kind of debate that happened publicly, and mostly actually through its kind of design phases. And once it's built, people sort of silent acceptance, and then a few years later some celebration of it. But it's just interesting how that's so dependent, I guess, on the dialogue and the continued communication and the designs. It was a relatively small portion of that. The architectural design was even small.